So we're back together, Emily Hickey. It's hard to define, but like you are helping me so much in
Mhm.
my journey as a CEO. Like there's coaching, there's marketing
Mhm.
stuff. Like it's how do we define what our relationship is?
What is our I don't know. I know we have it doesn't have a name.
It doesn't have a name, but you are a coach and an inspiration, a teacher, a friend, an honest voice. Like you bring things back to center. So you're a very important collaborator in my life. And the last time we spoke, we were sort of focused on brand why, right? Like,
Yep.
I think we have a lot of entrepreneur listeners
Mhm.
and a lot of women who are in business and not necessarily in their own business, but are working at businesses where they also have to understand the brand why of why they're there. And then I think we started to talk of like the extrapolation of that out
Mhm.
to us in our lives and our and also, it's like you reference somebody in your life. I don't want to necessarily call her out, but who, made choices not to be a professional
Mhm.
woman and still very much in her nucleus is like, what is the why? And so I think we started to talk about the why, not only as it pertains to brand, but as it pertains to us in our lives, like a personal why, and how that, of course, can dovetail into a brand why if you're working on a brand. Why don't you talk a little bit about your line of thinking on this and what you've been reading
Deep
lately?
diving on
Yeah, what
lately.
you've been deep diving on.
I think, my point of view for people like us, is that work and life is all one thing.
Yeah.
That it and that's why what you and I do together is hard to define because it goes across both and
Yeah.
what you're trying to accomplish in the context of your business is in a lot of ways trying to accomplish yourself,
Yeah.
and obviously that's a core theme of Goop as a brand. It's a core theme of both of our lives and most people's lives, that we're Americans and we're workaholics and a lot of the crucible for where we, find and become ourselves is at work,
Yeah.
It's where we do that's sort of where the wrestling match is.
Yeah.
So, my feeling, I'm a Jungian. Is that the deep dive? There are many deep dives.
Well, there are
What's the
many
current?
deep dives. I was
Yeah.
talking, who's the president that you've been,
Roosevelt.
yeah,
Yeah.
You're
I'm
Teddy
obsessed with Teddy
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt.
Yeah. Why are you obsessed with Teddy Roosevelt right
Because
now?
he had a moral center. Because the first page of his autobiography talks about how his whole thing was the arena. He coined that phrase, right? And this concept of a strenuous life, and that
Mhm.
it's a life of effort and energy and intention, and where you have a North Star and a point of view, and where in the midst of everything coming at you, you are trying to do the right thing. And he always had kind of a foot in his family. He was a picture of wholeness. The people I really admire are whole,
Mm.
or they've done something in their life to achieve wholeness.
Yeah.
You do that. You're a good example of that. And I think that's what your brand is about. We've talked about that a lot, but I think that is the journey of life. That is what the Jungian journey would be. It's why I love everything he says. I just think he got it so right. That
Mhm.
his fundamental premise about life is that your job is to externally manifest who you are,
Yeah. Would you say that Teddy Roosevelt's why was to pursue the uniqueness of his own person?
I think he had a why of service. He's a little
Mhm.
bit I'm not quite that way. Like he was obsessed with Abe Lincoln, actually.
Right.
He wore his hair in a ring on his finger at his second inauguration. Because he saw him as somebody who was unspoiled by prosperity and who drove for purpose. He really was a president with purpose and a
Right.
moral center, right?
Mhm.
And I think that that's what Roosevelt was trying to do. I think he believed that every person's life mattered,
Yeah.
which is the premise of the United States, and the Declaration of Independence is the value of an individual life.
Yeah.
And he really fought for that. So I think he was like a service guy. I don't think of myself that way. I'm not a politician. I have zero interest in that at all. But he had a purpose in his life, and it was very balanced. Nature was a big part of it, and his family and his duty to the
Mhm.
country. But I think basically I believe in purpose. I believe in a soul. I think
Mhm.
everybody has a soul. It's
Yeah.
not that I have a specific idea of religion, but I do think everybody has a soul. And I think that's what screams at you when you're off track.
Yeah.
Like I think that we're all born with a set of instincts and a concept of who we can be and what we should be doing. And it is the Jungian thing of like the soul or the unconscious can't talk, but it knows.
Yeah.
Whereas your ego side of your life can talk, but it doesn't know. And so there's always this interplay of this thing inside you trying to steer you, in the right direction. And it can do that through instinct and through dreams and depression and anxiety and all of the other you sort of psychotic manifestations of not being aligned with what you're supposed to be doing in
Right.
your life.
You get
So
spoken to
yeah,
when
yeah,
you're right out of.
which makes sense to me.
So he talked about the arena that was like to be the man in the arena, to be the man who makes the choice to do something publicly, to move the world publicly, right? And I think for him, being of service was public service,
Yeah.
and not only to serve the public, but to be in the public, like that's a factor of service, right? And
Yep.
what comes along with being a man in the arena, and how he talks about, it's the man in the arena that is sort of gets the jeers and the claps and
Yep.
like is subject to the opinions of the people who are choosing to sit on the sidelines, right? And that
Yep.
there's like this inherent bravery and almost foolhardy, right? Like
Yeah.
bravery, and to go into the arena and to plant a flag and say, I'm going to do this because I believe in my purpose. I believe that I have a purpose, and I believe that I can move the world forward in some way. And I'm foolhardy enough to believe that. And I can withstand, the jeers and the
Yep.
claps and all of the things. So do you feel like to have that, like that because in a way it's like, to be so wedded to your purpose, like that's what gives me bravery, you know what I mean? In those situations where I can keep being a man in the arena, as ridiculous as it is and however foolhardy it is, and like whatever gauntlet I go through, but I'm so wedded to my purpose, like it's so in my cells that there's no choice for me,
Yep.
right? But to live in the arena, and like that's my purpose.
So how would you describe that? What is your purpose?
I've been thinking a lot about this, in anticipation of this conversation. And I find it so hard to articulate because
Yep.
it's like I could tell you a million things about what my purpose is. Like there's, but it's more of a feeling. It's so abstract, like it's so difficult to articulate, but it has something to do with like this drive to pursue my full self.
Yep.
With this abject belief that if I do that, then the people who I'm around like might witness that and feel that ability to like, it's sort of
Yep.
what you're saying about Teddy Roosevelt, like
Yep.
this. I just want everyone to sort of be able to join hands and feel what's possible within them.
Yep.
Like however weird and specific and unusual that might be. And it doesn't have to look like how it looks for me or you,
Yep.
right? Like that we all have this incredible gift that does come from our soul, and
Yep.
that, it's almost like a waste if we are sublimating
Yep.
and
Yep.
we're not on. It's like a waste of your life.
Yep.
So it's like I have this drive, like don't waste your life,
I think you do have that. No, I agree. I think that's it. I think that urge is to create yourself and to become whole. And it takes self-awareness and struggle. That's where so much of the meaning comes from, a struggle and playing all your good cards and your bad cards. And I think everybody, people ask me that a lot, in the course of just building friendships at work or like people who feel like they don't have their careers figured out or, and I like that, I think is the toughest thing, is when they don't have the game board for executing that struggle within. I think yours is so clear. And I think everybody has a few, like, I guess I don't think that there's one distinct purpose. I think there are a few. And with you, that one is very clear,
Right.
is that I think you have a drive to play a leadership role in the world. There's something about you that gets more gratification from growing yourself in a way that it brings other people along,
Yeah.
and there's a group piece of that, which is so cool, that you've used your own pushing to find yourself as like a public act to bring other people along
Right.
with you, which is so cool. And but there, I mean, I think, we've talked about the concept of home. Like I
Yeah.
think you have a big theme in your
Yeah.
life of creating your concept of home with all of everything settled and in place and ordered and hearth and cooking and creativity and kids, and where I think there's always people always have a journey path, like their core narrative, I think, has a lot to do with how they grew up.
Do you think about your why like this?
Yeah.
And what is yours?
I think I have a few. I think so. I would say the main hero's journey, I think everyone needs to have some clarity around what they're coming from and what they're going towards,
Yeah.
and there's a narrative. And I think a lot of that for me has to do with changing my concept of family, that we had circumstances growing up that I really am determined to correct in my own family.
Mm.
And that pretty much is what I'm after,
Interesting. So yours
And
is more of a reflection back.
well, I think it's just my picture of what I wanted in my life was a reaction to what I was coming from. And I think also like it's self-growth driven the way yours is 100%.
Right.
But like so I have, you know, sides of my personality that I've just been really determined to break through and
Like
not
what?
like shyness. I was a paralyzingly shy child. And I think if you are shy, that's a lifelong battle. It just
Yeah.
is. And also, confidence and I think fear, things that you don't have. But like for me, those
Things
were
that who doesn't have?
you.
What?
I think you're so brave. You think you have fear?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I have anxiety,
Yeah.
but I actually don't, maybe I don't have a lot of fear. I mean, sometimes like I do have fear around speaking in front of groups,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not driven by fear.
Yeah.
I sometimes I get anxious.
Yeah.
The more that when I've tried a lot of things in my life and the more that I am vulnerable about the things that I'm learning, then the more confident I can be, right?
Yeah.
Because that's been an important part of like finding confidence.
Yeah.
But I feel like you're super confident. And I don't know, when you talk about leading your team and you seem so well prepared, is that to bolster or find confidence?
Yeah, I mean, you know that I over prepare and
I know, but
overthink everything. Yeah, I mean that is core weapon for me is
right.
being so prepared. But no, I mean I'm confident in business. I'm
Yeah.
confident, but
Very.
but we're also meeting each other in our 50s. It took me a long time to find my footing in
Yeah.
terms of like self-esteem and I had a huge fear of failure. That was probably one of the biggest things holding me back.
Right.
And doing things I shouldn't have been doing, like in my 30s, when I look at how I was spending my time, it just wasn't, it was like so off. And I like
Mhm.
when I turned 40, I changed pretty much everything. And I mean, I really did. And that like really put me on my track. That's why I think this is so important.
Yeah.
I think if you don't understand, if one doesn't understand like their own, some sense of meaning and purpose and what they're good at and what their shadow self is and the stuff that they need to work on. And if they don't understand that with a lot of self-awareness, I think they're really disadvantaged in figuring out, getting the pieces in place that are really going to make them successful and happy. And so when you see people struggling and defining their career, I think a lot of times they don't have a lot of self-awareness. Like I don't think they know what they're good at,
Right.
and I don't think they know what they're bad at.
So is there an exercise that you suggest? Like how could somebody currently, like who's currently sort of rudderless around this topic, like how could do you sit down and kind of make a list and like make a pact with yourself that you're going to be incredibly honest and sort of take inventory of what you can do and
I think you have to have some kind of structure for doing that. I mean, I think I did a combination. I'm not like a therapy person, so I didn't talk to anybody. I think that the power of the visual imagination
Mhm.
is unparalleled. I really do. It's how we've talked about this, how Einstein solved like the theory of relativity as he pictured it, you know? And I think if you can't picture your life in a really complete way that would make
Mm.
you happy, I mean, I think a lot of people can't picture that actually, or they've never tried, you
What is
know?
the way to do that, I wonder?
Well,
Like,
I think you can like, I randomly when I was, like, in the throes of existential crisis in my 30s, I randomly bought this book about visualization. I thought it was a meditation book, and it was a manifestation book, so that as a total side note, made me like, I one of the things I was envisioning, it was like it was great. It was like, do this exercise where you picture where you think of something in your past when you were really happy, you know? And I kept picturing I had, like, after my first .com, I had bought a house in Tahoe, and I, like, was doing my music and trying to get that out of my system.
I love it.
And I like, it was a very important part, time of my life. But I used to hike. I used to go on this hike behind the house, and it had this little pond. It was like this alpine little pond.
Mm.
And I was constantly hiking up there. It was what I would do every single morning. And it was a great time actually of life. And so I would lie when I was living in New York City and super stressed out and had
Mhm.
babies and was like in a disastrous place in my career, like the whole like F minus. I mean, a horrible, horrible time of life. So I would lie on the floor of this apartment in the East Village, and I would picture just walking up to that little pond,
Mm.
and then 5 years later, without any deliberate decision making at all, ended up living in Telluride with a pond in our backyard. And I mean, it's just life
Mhm.
is funny, but so I would and then I would do this exercise where I would sort of change the channel and picture myself as like Hillary Clinton with like a haircut and a suit. You know what I mean? I would just channel change of like, who do I want to be here? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Is that because from the way I was programmed from my mom, that actually probably would have been something that it looked like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But that's like my idea of misery. I'm just a more creative person than that, and I need more independence. I don't like anything corporate. I don't like to be boxed in.
Yeah.
And it just sort of that kind of exercise led me to sort of this, I'm just going to be the talent because I need to be so good at what I do that I can just be who I am. I can be this kind of soft, sensitive, Midwestern sucker walking through the world. Like, I'm just going to be so good at what I do that I don't get eaten alive by alpha personalities in boardrooms or whatever it is.
Mm.
And that, like, there
Did
was
you
a,
have a lot of that?
yeah, that was how I spent my 30s. Like, I would say just getting really beat up by alpha investors and as like sort of the second in charge, a COO or CMO type at companies as a sort of almost professional co-founder. So I would go into company after company and like help them scale it and figure it out and do whatever the founder couldn't do.
Right.
And so it just was not anybody who's done that type of role on a serial basis knows how brutal that existence
Mhm.
is. So, I mean, so I just had this kind of defiance of the soul moment of like, I'm not gonna work for anyone anymore. That is over. I'm
Mhm.
never, ever doing that again. And I don't like, I'm just gonna do what I'm good at, which is the growth part of all of this. I don't want to do all this other crap. And I'm not getting dressed up. I'm not gonna run around in skinny jeans and
They're out of
heels.
style anyway, so you left at the right time.
Yeah. I know, thank God. No, I just had like this
And
rule
that gave
set.
you the courage to start your own
Yeah, I mean, I was
company?
just sort of at rock bottom. I was
Right.
just like, you know, so I built back up. I did this very, irrational I think trying to solve with purely with your rational side of your mind is not going to work. I think that you have to let instinct bubble up and guide you. And you have to listen to that, and so my way of doing that was this meditation of like picturing myself, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And then I kind of left brained it in terms of, okay, what am I going to do? And I think like I just got to work, you know what I mean? I just kind of created a rule set and I was like, I'm not going to, I think it's a big gotcha to pay attention to the scoreboard. I think the score takes care of itself. I think you just
Mm.
do something diligently in a way that is honest. Like you always talk about being in your own integrity. If you're focused, if your flashlight's on the page pretty close, I think it's like a data science thing. if like it's a proven thing. Like the number of steps ahead that somebody can see, the worst decisions they make. Like they put people trying to get through a maze or whatever. You got to shine the flashlight close to the page, and just do in your circumference of your life, just do what you like doing and what you're good at. And I think the pieces kind of fall into place from there. So that's kind of what I did.
And how do you hold that and like the vision board, the sort of manifestation, the big picture, I'm going here?
Well, for me, again, I just started to make these micro decisions. Like, okay, I can picture in my life that I don't want to be in boardrooms, and I could care less about a career track or a title, or it's just not how I'm driven,
Right.
And I'm just going to start doing the stuff that I like and have faith that it's going to, bring me to the life that I want, which is, a materially driven life. I don't think there's anything wrong with having ambitions around the life that you're creating for your
Right.
kids or for yourself. But for me, trying to like do something explicitly to create that life wasn't successful. And I just had to do what I liked and what I was good at. And that was for me was marketing and growing companies. That was that's the piece of doing this that I really like. And I feel like I have a nose for. I feel like I'm like I always tell the kids out of school, if you lined up 100 people, what's the thing you're best at? That's actually what you should be doing. And so I think half the battle is figuring out what that is. And I was lucky that
Yeah.
it was clear to me, what that was. So
I think that leads to joy too when you can do some index into doing the thing that you're good at
yeah,
doing. It's like my hardest part of my job is to try when I'm trying to do the things that I'm not good at, like I'm not born to do.
yeah,
And I mean, because of course we all have responsibilities in our jobs, or most of us, right, that are outside our zone of genius.
yeah, yeah,
It's just part of life,
yep.
but it can be demoralizing and
It can.
like
Yeah, I know.
but I do think that there is kind of a great freedom that comes when you can admit the things that you're not good at and be like, this is not my life's purpose to
Yep.
create a 90-day onboarding plan. Like, it's just, I'm not good at it and I'm never going to be. So I can rely on other people to help me with that.
I agree. But I think there are also, I mean, I want to hear like your time in your 30s that we talked about.
Yeah.
Was this time for you too? It was,
Man.
we're
The
like,
30s are
yeah,
brutal.
they are brutal.
And I feel like nobody kind of warned,
Yeah.
nobody foreshadowed what the 30s are, which is like this very bizarre. It's like when you're in your 20s, you kind of still have the latitude of being a kid, right? You're sort of it's like you're in your 20s and anything is still possible. You
Yep.
could still like choose a different career and your
Yep.
friends and family wouldn't freak out.
Yep.
You could call off an engagement. You could move to a new city. You're in your 20s. You're
Yep.
in an intense period of self-discovery.
Yep.
So kind of anything goes.
Yep.
But then I felt personally like all of a sudden I was turning 30 and I was like, okay, and professionally I was in a good place. So in my 20s, I sort of hit the jackpot and I really thought I wanted to act, and I don't know how I feel about it's sort of become an ambivalent thing, but I really wanted to do it. And I was laser focused on doing it. And then I just sort of got on a train and started doing it all the time. And I didn't think that I even on a certain sense, like deserved to have the time to reflect on like whether I was happy in my career or not, because I was just like, you're so fucking lucky. Shut the fuck up and like just keep doing movies,
Yeah.
But then when I turned 30, it's sort of like, then I wasn't married. I didn't have a kid. I was really questioning my career, even though I didn't feel that I had the right to do so. And the days of like messing around are sort of over. It's like people are now expecting you to be a fully fledged adult. It starts to be weird if you break off an engagement or change your career or move to a city. It's like, what are you doing? You're 37. Like, why are you doing this now? So I felt like this pressure to be grown up, to be married, to be a mother, to feel settled in my career. Like, And I also think I wasn't aligned with myself. I wasn't totally living in integrity yet, meaning I hadn't spent enough time with myself in solitude, really deeply listening to myself to understand who I was and what my purpose was. And then, I got married, I had a kid.
Yep.
I was like, wait, now I really need to contemplate like
Yeah.
who I am and what I'm doing and
Yep.
what my purpose is and
Yep.
why am I running so hard
Yep.
and why do I punish myself alongside, like it's almost like the running, the driving,
Yeah.
like so I heard something once on We Can Do Hard Things, Glennon Doyle's podcast, and she was talking about, I think she was talking about actually her eating disorder and how the discipline around the disorder, was so strong and like, how it kind of created this like almost comfortable framework, right? It's like you're so disciplined about the food, the exercise, the this, the that, and that she had stopped suddenly and asked herself, like, I'm so disciplined, and sort of questioning the health of the discipline or not, and thinking to herself, but what am I a disciple of? Which to me, I was like, oh my God, like to have created that level of discipline, like and so, that so many like high achieving people
Yep.
have.
Yep.
Like, what are you a disciple of? Are you a disciple of your trauma? Are you a disciple of like your perfectionism of never
Yep.
being good enough? Like,
Yep.
where's all this discipline?
Yeah.
That's
Like
interesting.
interesting.
Where
Yeah.
is it coming from?
Right.
Like, why am I so disciplined? Why am I, like, and questioning the health of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it had given me this sense of identity, like, to have discipline and work really hard and work out and do all the things. And
Yep.
Glennon years later sort of helped me put words to that. But at the time I was like, I was questioning deeply, like, where is this leading? Like, and this kind of white knuckling that we do as high achievers in our culture is so dangerous to our development. It's like, it's all the suppression of feeling just to like get through it and do it well.
Yep.
And it's like, why do we feel that push to like grin and bear it and be excellent and like,
Yeah.
So I've been trying then in my 40s, I tried in my 40s to dismantle that, which really had, I think, taken over and I felt ravaged in my 30s by my lack of fidelity to myself.
Yeah. It's so interesting. And so you felt that, but I mean, what does that mean, I guess? Like you were unhappy?
I was unhappy.
Yeah.
I was unhappy.
Yeah.
I had spent my whole life trying to be all these things to all these people.
Yeah.
And picking up the cues like, oh, I'm supposed to be like that. Wait, I'm supposed to be, no, I like that. And what if I want to be really great? I got to be like that. And never, and I'm still, by the way, like I still am like, hey, like, how you doing in there? You know what I mean? Because I still, it's like my default is to like get back on the track.
Yeah.
And there was a lot in my life that I hadn't really felt. Just take the time to feel. And, we think about our childhoods as like this defining, like my childhood difficulties or what I went through, the trauma, we all have stuff, right? And we all sort of have a lot of time and space to think about that.
Yeah.
But we never give ourselves the grace or the dignity to think about, I mean, I don't anyway. And a lot of my friends, I've been asking a lot of my friends this, like, do you give yourself the time or the grace to process things that happened to you last year?
Yeah.
Or when you were,
Right.
do you give yourself time? Like, yeah, I really want to talk about what happened to me after giving birth, or when I got fired at this job, or if I had this terrible relationship. Like, we kind of don't do that.
Yeah.
We have our childhood stuff and then we're like, okay, like we're supposed to be, now let's like get our shit together. But life is a series of like getting the shit kicked out of you, you know?
Right. Again and again. Yeah, it's eras of
It's just
yeah.
eras of getting your ass kicked.
Yeah.
Like it's the first noble rule, right?
Yeah.
It's like to live is to suffer. Like that's it. Like that's what the Buddhists say. Like
Yeah.
so it's how you approach it. But I do think that the hardship and the suffering, like kind of going back to what you were talking about, is the best tool for getting to that why.
Yep.
I think it's very brave to think about that truly unique why,
Yep.
and not look at any other template. Like,
Yep.
can you imagine what that would be like, to like s- just to really give yourself that space to think about.
Yeah. I think it's super key. Sean and I did this the other day, actually.
You did?
Yeah. So my
Sean is
husband, as
Emily's
you know,
husband.
yeah, he writes musical theater. And it's like,
Love it.
yeah, a hard path as an artist is a hard path because there's no scaffolding of achievement or velocity. You have to create that for yourself. And we were talking about that
Crazy.
brand exercise that we did, and doing that at the personal level, I actually think is helpful. And we were looking at, he's all about community. Like his dad had died when he was young, when he was 13, and his family blew up. He and his twin brother went to boarding school, and it was just everything was suddenly overnight gone, and he would always gravitate, like he would be a Manny for families. And he was like, the kids would be so pissed at, like, if the mom wanted their help getting the groceries out of the station wagon. He was like, I just would wait for her to get home so I could help her get the groceries out of the station wagon. His dialing is so community oriented, and it's a
Wow.
good, like, it's a good North Star for writing theater, because then you're in like Rocky Horror Picture Show, and then you're doing things to bring community together, and it's such a strong.
Right.
Then you've got the flashlight close to the page. You know what I mean? You're doing something from a sense of purpose and doing it for its own sake, as opposed to trying to drive a scorecard. Like operating to the scorecard, I think, is a huge mistake. And I think you do have to sit still with yourself and think about what is driving me, and how does that, just like with a brand, like how can that be an animation point in a spiritual way?
Yeah.
That's when I think you're really accessing
Yeah.
yourself.
How do you think or how does one know if they're off track, if they're sort of like pursuing the should
Yeah.
path instead of the why,
Yeah. Yeah.
the core why?
I mean, I think that's the midlife crisis. I think, like,
Right. Yeah.
it's your 30s, and it's the sense of it's either misery or ennui or something in between, anxiety, depression, boredom, or just that underlying sense of you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, or you're like leaving things on the table, which is the worst feeling in the entire world, and I think you have to listen to it and be willing to make big changes. And I think that takes a lot of courage,
So how do you counsel like
someone in that
yeah,
situation.
so like there's somebody in your life, for example, right, who has these sort of existential questions and
Yep.
so and it's someone that you're close to. So how do you approach, just because I think it's helpful to think about, like,
Yeah.
how do you encourage this person to reorient or discover their why?
I'm not a professional coach, clearly. I've really go deep with some circumference of people, including people who we've talked about,
Yeah.
and who I really try to understand.
Yeah.
But I think I really get a kick out of that, is trying to understand people and help them figure out how to put themselves on, like, the geyser of their own inspiration,
Mm.
and the people who we've talked about are people I just really, really know, and I know what's blocking them, and I know what drives them, and just helping to talk to them about again, like the left brain scaffolding that they could put into place, and stop worrying about. I think a lot of times they, like, when you talk to friends, like, have you ever talked to someone and they're like, I don't know whether I should get divorced, move to a new city, like, get a new job, or like the whole thing is Bermuda Triangle. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do, and that's where I think really sitting down and being able to visualize, what do you want your life? What would make you happy?
Mm.
If you just relax and sit in a dark room and think about that, I think you've got you have to find the stillness of orienting to yourself so you can start to make your left brain decisions around it. But I think a lot of people, like truly, I think a lot of people cannot answer that question.
It's actually an interesting, like if you think about the eventuality of getting there, like at what point are you, stepping on the wrong path? Like, and who are you,
Yeah.
who are you pleasing in that moment that takes
Yep.
you away from yourself, that takes you on the
Yep.
wrong path? And how do you reel that back?
Well, for me, I mean, it was like cutting the vines off my feet. It really was. And it's also like just being it's the shadow self stuff that we talk about a
She's
lot.
not in therapy, but she reads about Young.
That's why I'm always grilling you about
I
like
know.
how do you think about you talk about your shadow self a lot.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
do.
specific to you. And I don't think you can get from here to there without integrating that stuff. And that actually can be the path. Like for me, like it hit me like a ton of like I was super miserable. I was traveling a lot for work and I picked up a Tony Robbins book in the airport and I started to read it just like in the little bookstore. And it really that this I mean it's embarrassing the degree to which that changed my life. Like it he that guy is a genius, and the neuro-linguistic programming modality that is behind his work is incredible.
What does that mean?
It's basically self-narrative. It's like, have you created a glass ceiling for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And in my case, I think that my family circumstances had created a glass ceiling that so much of it is turning the lights on in your own room and being able to see that.
Yeah.
And like what are you it is literally getting out of your own shadow. Like when I read even the first chapter of that book, it was a huge light bulb for me of like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm making decisions out of low self-esteem. I'm making decisions out of fear of failure. And that's coming directly from my family circumstance of, our financial circumstances had changed quite a bit when I was young. And the hardness that resulted it didn't that wasn't the problem. The problem, I think, was just how my parents reacted to it. And my
Right.
father's constant refrain of being a failure and my mom's
Mm.
anger and inability to do anything about it. And it just created a glass ceiling in a lot of ways. And I think people like, I'm curious, your family was so different.
Yeah.
Your parents, you do not need to live your parents' unlived lives. You know what I mean? Like
No, I don't.
it's
But I
such an
do need to
interesting,
make sure that the glass ceilings that I've created for myself are dismantled. I think we all create
yeah,
those.
yeah.
And,
What do you think yours are?
especially as it pertains to Goop, I used to feel, and I feel like I've done a lot of work around this,
Mhm.
but I used to feel like, who am I to do this? Like,
Yeah.
and who am I to say that I can learn these things or attempt to learn these
Yeah.
things? And who am I to think I could ever have like a truly successful company? And so there's that part of me, I think, that's created that glass ceiling because I don't feel worthy in that way. Like,
Yeah.
who the fuck do I think I am?
Yeah. It's
And
wild.
and so I've made unconscious choices that have kept things smaller or contained or
Yeah.
and there's
Yeah.
so many ways to do that. Like there's so
Yep.
many ways to fuck yourself over
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
It's hiring wrong people.
Yeah.
It's like it's a million different
Yep.
things.
Yep.
It's like making these micro choices around business decisions that dilute your energy
Yep.
or
Yep.
focusing on the things that you're not great at. It's
Yep.
like all that stuff
Yep.
perpetuates the glass
It does.
ceiling.
It really does.
And this is sort of what I've been spending the last year really trying to be aware of and like trying to, get it off my head.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting. And it is so insidious. Like when one makes decisions from the glass ceiling, it does perpetuate itself.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it's the biggest gotcha. It
Yeah.
really takes you down a bad path and you can waste a lot of time. And it's also like I feel like you deserve a lot of credit for the brand that you have built. I think
Well,
you are one of the greats in terms of brand builders, and that Goop is one of the greats in terms of the awareness level, and it's an extraordinary accomplishment. And then I think also just the trust level. Any woman in this demographic who Googles, where should I get my eyebrows done in LA? This is an autobiographical. And if Goop comes up, that's the one she's going to click on because she trusts it.
Yeah.
Right. And to create brand reach and awareness of that level with that level of trust is almost impossible.
Right. Well, thank
So
you.
yeah, you did. And I think you,
There are certain
yeah,
things I've done well. I do think that, especially now, I'm starting to see like the value in having gone slower, like
yeah,
built slower. I am always surprised by like the power of self-limiting thoughts
yeah,
and how, I mean, talk about manifesting.
yeah.
It's like, and I feel like it's easier to manifest that stuff than,
I agree.
you know,
Yeah,
the ceiling busting stuff.
yeah. I agree. And that's the Tony Robbins. It's just like fixing your self narrative. And neuro-linguistic programming is a tool for doing that. It's really powerful. It's a
Good.
killer tool. Yeah. So I think
I've never even heard of this.
I'm like obsessed with it. I did it. I had spent a couple years doing those exercises and it was life changing.
How do you write down stuff?
No, it's meditative. You
Right.
know, like one of them is really neat. It's called like biography. And you basically act like who in your life do you feel really knows and loves you? Like for me, this is my sister. I feel like she really, really knows me, you know, and like and if you imagine how they see you, you know, it's very helpful because I
Right.
think you give yourself credit. You see yourself in an outline that you can click into that's
Right.
accurate instead of all the, you know, self-flagellating control freak, you know, all of us are such control freaks. But I mean, so yeah, it's just a lot of interest. It's like reprogramming the glass ceiling stuff. That's
Yeah.
what that's what it does. It's
Yeah.
super helpful. How did you get in your 30s? How did you wind your way out of this?
I had Apple and I had my first midlife crisis then because I was like, I've spent all this time and energy and effort building this career that I don't think I want.
Like, why do you think acting was not your thing long term?
I'm not sure it was acting because I loved doing theater and I loved acting in the moments where it was transcendent and
Yeah.
incredible
Yeah.
and like there's no feeling like it. And I do love that and I still love that. I think it was all the stuff that came with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's an industry that attracts like some unhealed people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of loneliness, a lot of traveling. And, you know, well, like you were talking about before, I'm such a hearth home person.
Yes. Yeah.
It was really hard for me, like for my makeup to be alone in far flung places, like in a hotel room with no friends, no family, no
Yeah.
kitchen. I didn't make great choices in terms of like from a self-honoring place of like, wow, do I really want to do this? It was like, well, you have to do this because it's so-and-so or it's this money or it's whatever.
Yeah.
So I was burnt out, had run into a lot of people that I felt like in the business that weren't great.
Yeah.
Being in the public eye is no joke. Like
Yeah.
it's brutal.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was kind of a rough ride. And I was like, why am I doing this? Why did I do this? Why did I want to do this? And I kind of gave myself permission to stop. And luckily I could afford to stop.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of women have children and have to go straight back
Yeah.
to work.
Yeah.
Like that, I feel so deeply fortunate that I was able to be like, you know what? I'm just going to stop and I'm
Yeah.
going to like be with my kids. And during that time period, I was like, I think I'm missing something. I have this great channel of like putting my creative stuff or resolving my emotional stuff through this one channel of art, but it's not totally everything. Like there's something else I want to be doing and I don't know what it is. And I just sort of slowed everything down and waited for the answer to come through me. And it was years.
Yeah.
Like it was a long time.
Yeah.
I kind of did a bit of my day job when I needed to do it, or, you know, like with Iron Man movies. And, you know, I did like some supporting things here and there, but I was on a mission to understand, like, because I also felt so recalibrated around my purpose when I had kids.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, so this is my real purpose. Like I'm here to have these guys.
Yeah.
And then, so who am I as a woman and as a person and as an artist, and am I something? And
Yep.
I gave myself that opportunity to really just see what came forward. And by the way, it was super weird because it was like, oh, I want to do something in the digital. This is like, when people had AOL email, you know what I mean? Like, this is a while ago.
Yeah.
And when I started thinking about this was like in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And so now it's not so hard to imagine like, oh, you're doing something and you want to do something else. Like you're a CEO and you want to write a book. Great. Or, you run a marketing, performance marketing company, but you also are interested in brand.
Yep.
Fine. Or
Yep.
you want to, it's now sort of, I feel like more acceptable. But at the time I felt like as a woman, if you were a professional, you stayed smack in the middle of that lane.
Yep.
And you don't, because if you're an actor, you don't start a brand. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell are you
Yeah.
doing? It
Yeah.
was like really out there at the time. Like I think, we forget how
I know.
totally anathema it was. Like, but I just, once I sort of clicked into it, I was like, okay, it was like sort of, I felt like this vibration, like it's something to do with this. It's something to do with like this idea that we can always be in pursuit of ourselves. Like we can always be becoming who we want to be and however that looks. And it started to feel intoxicating to me. And then I started to think about the ways in which I felt that way. And it was in a lot of different ways. It was in like researching gut health in the sense that like my son had eczema and like what was the access of that and what would the recipes be and how would I, nourish my family and, and that was like a big part of it. And what I got from travel and what I got from fine art and all the things and like, how do they all come together and how do they let me be uniquely me and let me sort of feel, and so I don't know, it's like crazy, but I was like, I'm going to start a website,
No, but it was the amazing thing is it's just the exact right thing for you, because I don't think you pursuing yourself in total privacy would be fulfilling for you. I think it's doing it with and on behalf of the group, taking women, as into this modern, really, like a more open space where women can make autonomous decisions around what is best for them. Like I think that wrapper around your pursuit of self is what gives this meaning for you. So you like stumbled into something I feel like was exactly right. And I feel like I did the same thing. And what that had in common was just the space to do it. And I do think it takes courage. And you like that's often when you talk to people, it's like, well, you have to stop what you're doing. You know what I mean? You have to get into some other like open space to let other things happen.
And that's the scary part, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
stop what I'm doing.
Right.
Like, what about my rent? What
Yeah.
about, right? So it's also being pragmatic around how do you spiritually stop what you're doing, even if you have to keep doing it,
Yeah.
to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Like, how do you spiritually put it down, do it well enough to,
Yeah.
maintain
Yeah.
while you really give yourself the space to think about that,
Yeah.
when women in particular, like are following that vein of like, why am I alive?
Yep.
So much power and beauty comes out of that. Like when you're acting from that place.
Yep. I really agree. I do believe in purpose. And it's not that I think it's like this one thing. It's not only one thing. I
Right.
think there are a few threads of it, but you've got to figure that out and get yourself in the right neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it's like the outcome, like I really believe in a miracle year, the outcomes of what can happen and how fast, whether it's a business or a person, when you orient to that, it's like a whole different deal. So yeah, it's worth it.
You're the best.
You're the best.